Chris was a very good blader in the third season of Beyblade, as he came towards the ending of the season, showcasing his amazing skills and prowess. I really enjoyed Chris as a character despite him basically coming out of nowhere and making such a huge impact later on in the story. He is first seen in the Bay Star Island tournament, destroying Toby and Zio and staying hidden throughout the entire tournament. He later gets to go against Masamune, and from there we get to see his real potential. Leading up to this episode, the Blader gang was still trying to find the last legendary Blader who wields the Winter Constellation. They were expecting it to be Masamune as the striker wields that constellation, only to see that Chris also has the Winter Constellation. They definitely did my boy Masamune dirty, not having him be a legendary blader, and he took some ridiculous defeats in this season. Chris really did come out of nowhere, and he was so skilled despite not being known from anywhere. It's from this that we find out that Chris is a blader for hire, doing different tasks for people who pay him. Chris's battle against Masamune wasn't all that close until Masamune was able to get a step above Chris, and this is mainly due to Chris's bae, Phantom Orion. Now, I would say Phantom Orion has to be the best Beyblade ever made. Its performance tip is a bearing drive that has an internal ball bearings that support the free spinning tip and allows to spin for long periods of time with minimal friction. Orion is able to keep spinning despite any attacks or friction it receives, and the logo and design is amazing. Being a blader for hire, Chris would have to do demanding jobs in some of the worst terrains ever. He could be in a frozen tundra, a blazing desert, or even a swamp-like forest. He learned to work on his performance tip and be able to spin on any type of surface, no matter the conditions. Masamune was able to back Chris to a corner, but then Chris was able to harness the power of the star fragment, changing his Orion. I love this Orion's look as the blue orbs on the bay all light up, including the three eyes on the face bowl. We also get to see a constellation Orion in the air, as Chris would go on to use a special move, Bernard's Loop. Now Bernard's Loop works by Orion changing from attack mode to stamina and the 4 lights on the Phantom Fusion Wheel, and the 3 lights on the Orion face bowl glowing like a starlight blue. Orion then releases a colossal ghostly beast, and Orion's beast then devours the opposing Beyblade's beast and creates a cataclysmic explosion. Now Chris only used the mode change in his match against Masamune. Can we also talk about the original concept art right here of Orion? My god, these are so beautiful. I love the Facebook design, and Orion's design is great all around, and any of these colors would have worked. Now let's talk a bit about Chris's past. As you know, Chris is a blader for hire, so when he blades, he doesn't show much emotion. Everything is a job for him, and he gets paid for results. However, during Masamune's battle, for a short moment, he started to get excited about challenging a skillful opponent and was able to unlock his star fragment powers because of it. When Chris encounters Jinga and the legendary bladers, he's at the peak of his loneliness. By this point, Chris has embraced his isolation as a source of strength. He views the legendary bladers with skepticism, believing that their reliance on each other makes them weak. In contrast, he believes his self-sufficiency makes him stronger. Chris was once like Jinga as well, who trained hard and wanted to reach the top with his friends. Chris would keep winning over and over with his overwhelming strength, and his friends could not keep up with him. Chris knew deep down he would not be able to reach the World Tournament if his team could not back him up as well. We see a flashback of Chris, which should have taken place during the Beyblade World Championship qualifiers. Chris's own friends even left him because of how good he was, and they were lacking in comparison. His dream was crushed. Because he was too strong, he was kicked out of the Beyblade world. This is a really good perspective here on the world of Beyblade in each country. The Beyblade series mainly revolved around Japan, but we could see that the only other powerhouse teams around the world was England and America. All the other smaller countries did not have as many great bladers, and therefore being too strong makes sense in Chris's place. Had other strong bladers been in Chris's shoes, would they also feel the same way? It makes me think of Africa's blading team before KiiNGKhyy got there. There wasn't that many great bladers in town except Nile, and KiiNGKhyy helped bring that team to what it was. Imagine Nile if KiiNGKhyy wasn't there. Imagine if Jinga didn't have great bladers around him too, like Masamune, Tsubasa, and Yu to support him. It's the reality of the Beyblade world. Chris learned to live all alone now, and because of his skills, he decided he could at least be paid for it. In his battle with Jinga, Chris fights not just with his Beyblade, but with his deeply ingrained belief system. He's convinced that this is his way of life, and it's the only way to survive, and that relationships are nothing more than distractions that will hold him back. Jinga, however, fights not just with skill, but with heart, something Chris has long buried beneath his desire for victory. Jinga is able to understand this and tells Chris that it is the hope of the 4 seasoned bladers to give hope to a new future and help future bladers from preventing these tragic experiences that Chris had. Deep down, Chris has longed for a spirited Bey battle, something to give him the fun and thrill of blading once again that he lost. Jinga promises to give him that same thrill once again with his Pegasus. Chris had accepted that his life was to carry on missions for people, and that was the only thing that could allow him to continue Beyblading. Jinga tells Chris that he might not fully understand what he's been through and the path he has taken, but one thing he can understand is that despite all of that, Chris did not give up Beyblading. He continued to battle and even loves Beyblade. Jinga tells him about friends making everyone stronger and how it can be a great benefit for you. Chris is still in denial, thinking he doesn't need friends. He can't believe what he's hearing. Jinga is able to defeat Chris and tells him to keep getting back up despite losing and how he can always try again. He tells Chris to tell him to see it with his own eyes, a true future that you can make. For Chris, this realization is earth-shattering. He spent his entire life believing that loneliness was a strength, that relying on others would only lead to pain. But now, for the first time, he's faced with the possibility that his path of isolation may have been a mistake. The idea that strength can come from trust and friendship shakes Chris to his core. I really loved Chris as a legendary blader. He was someone who came out of nowhere and ended up being a huge help towards the end of the season. His character was someone who shadowed out, but then helped being a huge contributor in the end. He was very well like another Jinga in his own country before being abandoned by his own friends and shunned from the Beyblade world. He is definitely in my list of top 5 bladers by the end of the series, and I wish we could have seen him more. Chris was very independent, often spending a lot of time alone. He was someone who never really relied on friends and people anymore. He couldn't see the future and what it had in store like Jinga. All he knew was Beyblade, and he was really good at it. Chris is often overlooked, but his story is one of the most profound in the series. Rather than enjoying the camaraderie of friends, Chris was pushed from one competition to the next, never staying long enough to build any lasting relationships. He was celebrated for his victories, but the more he won, the more isolated he became, and success, instead of bringing connection, deepened his sense of isolation. Chris's loneliness was fueled by his need for survival. He threw himself into perfecting his skills, believing that if he couldn't rely on others, then he had to rely on himself. His philosophy became simple: the stronger he was, the less he would need anyone. And so he isolated himself, pushing his body and mind to his limits, in the hopes that Beyblade mastery would fill the void in his heart. In the end, Chris's story is about more than just battles. It's about the emotional journey of a blader who learned that true strength isn't about being alone. It's about having the courage to let others in. Chris's path of loneliness may have shaped him, but it didn't define him. He found a new way forward, where he didn't have to walk alone. Chris's story is a powerful reminder that loneliness may push us to achieve great things, but it's in connection with others that we find true fulfillment. His journey from isolation to companionship is one that resonates deeply, and it shows that no matter how long we've walked alone, it's never too late to change your path. Let me know how you guys feel about Chris, and what other characters from Beyblade you would like me to go over. Well, I thank you guys for watching the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll be back in the next one. Peace.